What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today we are going to be reviewing the entire Stellar collection from Gavox watches. Now, Michael from Gavox was kind enough to provide these to review, but they do have to make their way back to him once it has completed. So he sent out all three of the Stellar collection, which are a unisex dress watch, each of which comes with different variations. So I'm going to cover, what's the same first, and then I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what makes each one, different. So we're actually going to start off with this one, and we're just going to cover off all your sizes, dimensions, and, everything else that you need to know. Now, keep in mind, all this, what I'm mentioning right now, is the same across the Stellar range. So like I mentioned already, these are a unisex dress watch. Yeah, they are suited for men and women. So this one is the navy, so the Stellar navy with the small seconds complication, but again I'll cover more of that in a minute. So the size of these are a 36mm. They have a 41.5 lug to lug, and they are 7.9mm thick. The lug width is 18mm, so they're really nice and elegant. You can also see we have a nice taper on this faux croc leather strap, and each of the strap and bracelet options are different as well. So this one comes on the blue, or you can get it on a Milanese, and it's the same for the others as well. You can get them on a Milanese or a leather, depending on your personal preference. So all of the watches have 50 meters of water resistance, a 316L stainless steel case, and leather, like I mentioned already, and a 316L Milanese is an option too. You get 24 months warranty with these watches, which I think is quite nice. Sapphire crystal on each of them, which I have confirmed. And they also have 1600 AM, which is the thingy for the anti-magnetism rating, which is pretty impressive and definitely more than some other watches that you get. So that is a same across the entire series of Stellar watches. So no matter which one you get, they're going to be exactly the same. So right guys, now I'm just going to talk about what else is similar on these watches. So you'll notice that under the 12 o'clock we have the Gavo branding, and that is the same on all of the watches. You'll also notice this sort of like guilloche, is it a guilloche? I don't know how you pronounce that, pattern on the center of the dial. That is the same on all of the watches as well. The handset is the same, so we've got these like really slender and elegant hands with a little Lume dot on the end of them. Very, very nice, beautiful, and they are ceramic coated as well, and the ceramic, as you can see, is blue. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful. I went into the reason why they do that in the initial unboxing, but for those of you who haven't seen that, essentially back a long time ago, they actually blued the hands on clocks inside of naval ships to prevent corrosion. Because obviously untreated stainless steel, it does corrode in the salty sea air. So that's why they blued the hands to stop that. So this sort of mimics that, but it doesn't use the same technique. It uses a blue ceramic coating instead of heat treating the hands. And I just think it has that same beautiful effect, and you can just see how lovely it catches the light. Also the same is a radial pattern just behind the printed Roman numerals, and also the minute track is exactly the same as well. Also the same is the case design. So you've got high polished all the way around. There is no bezel, and it's actually all one piece apart from the case back. The crown is exactly the same. The positions just change on the other two models. So this one is at the 3, the other two are at the 4. The lugs are high polish and exactly the same. The case back is also very, very similar. It's got a radial brush pattern, Gavo branded, then the Stellar, and then obviously your information as well. So yeah, that is pretty much what is the same. The only thing that makes these watches individual is the complication. So this one, as you can see, has a small seconds, which is one of my favorite complications for quartz watches. So you can just see it ticking away there at the bottom. Very, very beautiful and elegant looking. So now let's show you the complications on the other two. So here on this one, this is the golden star. And you can see this one has a moon and sun phase. So it's, instead of it being like a traditional disc that sits behind the dial, this one actually has it applied on a subdial. So you can see we've got a 24-hour, and then you can see a little sun to represent the day, and then at the top we have a starry sky to represent the night. And I just love that, you know, they've done something a little bit different. You know, all the stars are hand applied, the sun is applied, which is something I was not expecting. You can also see that little hand is Lume filled too. And then the second hand is also a little bit different. It's like a, it looks like a really slender and elegant pair of scissors. And we've got that little circular counterbalance at the end. Again, it's got that same blued hand, and it is just absolutely stunning. I think this one is probably my favourite out of the trio. I've never really had hands on with a moon phase, and I just think it's such a beautiful and elegant complication to have on a watch. Again, you know, the case back is pretty much the same, case is the same. Quick release on all the straps as well, which is really nice to see. So let's show you the final complication, and that is this one. So this is a calendar complication. We've got a different hand, and you can see we've got all the way from 1 round to 31 to show you the date. Again, we've got them same hands, but these are actually rose gold coloured instead of blued like the other ones. If anything, I would say this one is more designed towards women, just because of that rose gold colour. But then again, you know, you guys, if you like rose gold, you could probably rock this as well. This strap does have quite a feminine taper, I'm going to say. You can just see it sort of like flares out and then in and then back out again. You know, whereas on I'm not going to say male design, but, you know, more of a masculine design, the taper is more, you know, pointed down. Whereas I've noticed on women's watches, it tapers a little bit more like this, where it flares out and then in and then back out again. But again, you know, guys could rock this as well, you know, put this on a leather strap and you'd never even notice. So again, you know, all these watches are completely unisex. Looking at that case back, you can see it's exactly the same. Crown at the 4 o'clock, which is signed and high polished. So let's get all of these watches side by side. You can just see how compact they are on my hands. And for notice, I don't have big hands. They're about average. So they are all the watches side by side. And you know, they're the what's the same and what's different. So now let's talk about, you know, the rest of you know, what makes these watches good. And that is actually the build quality. And you know what, to say how light these watches are, they're very, very well constructed. You can see the case is just all one, apart from like that case back. The case back is a pop-off one. Not my preferred. I would have preferred screw down, but you know, it's just one of them things. For a dress watch, I think, you know, pop-off is absolutely fine. You're not going to be taking this near water anyway. And they've got 50 meters, so if you get them, you know, a little bit wet, it's not going to ruin them. But yeah, you're definitely not going to want to take these swimming at all. But I just love the, you know, the overall design of this series. I think they're absolutely beautiful. Now, admittedly, I'm not a fan of dress watches. I have one in my collection, and that is it. That's my Bulova. But I could honestly say that I would wear one of these. Now, I wouldn't say that about any other dress watch really, but I definitely would wear one of these watches. Actual construction, we've already mentioned, you know, we've got that 316L case, which is high polish. Very, very well put together watch. You know, the crown, even though it's quite small, it feels planted and solid. You know, it turns really well. It's just push-pull, you can see it stops. And there's no ghost date position on this one. But yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. The movement feels fantastic inside. And I'll actually talk about movements right now because, again, you know, they're all slightly different. Right, guys, so now we're going to talk the movements in these watches because they're all a little bit different due to their different complications. So we're going to start off with the small seconds. So this one is a Seiko movement. It is the VD78. Admittedly, a movement I am not familiar with. The accuracy is negative to plus 20 per month, which is bang on what you can expect for a quartz. And again, I'll pop the rest of the specifications up on screen now so you can read them. But yeah, I had to do some research on this because it's a movement I'm not overly familiar with. But obviously, it's one of the less common, movements from Seiko. You don't see them all that often, but they do actually still produce them. And obviously, I'm a big fan of Seiko movements. They're really reliable, really solid and robust. And they're just workhorses. They're really, really good quality movements. So let's talk what's in the other two. So we're going to start this one next. And this is obviously the Rose Day calendar one. And this is actually a Miyota movement. This is the 6P26. The same accuracy as the Seiko, but I think the battery life is a little bit less on this one. Again, I'll pop the specifications up on screen because again, I had to research this because it's another movement I'm not overly familiar with. And then finally, we have the moon phase. This again is another Miyota movement. So this is the 6P28. Again, another movement I'm not familiar with. Again, specs on screen right now so you can see what I could find. Because again, with them not being popular movements, there isn't as much information out there as say something like a Seiko VK64 or something like that. So it did take me a little bit of time to do some digging and find out the proper specifications of all these movements. So now what we're going to do is, round this review up and talk about comfort and price. I'm going to pop this on wrist and show you what it wears like. And keep in mind, these watches will wear exactly the same. And if you want to see how the leather wears properly, you want a more detailed look at that, then check out my Spitfire review, because that has the same case shape. It's just a different dial and it has the same strap across all of them. So it's like pretty much universal, this series. They're all going to pretty much wear the same. So I'm going to pop this on wrist now and show you what it wears like. Alright guys, so here it is on wrist. So again, we've got that 36 by 41.5, and actually for me, on my 6-inch wrist, I think it's a little bit small. I never thought I'd ever say that about a watch, but it's a little bit smaller than I usually go for. I think because, a lot of its dial, it does look a little bit bigger, but I think it's just the short lug to lug that makes it look a little bit small. So I would definitely say, this one is, even though it's a unisex watch, I'd say it's definitely more for, guys with really, really slender wrists, and also women with very, very slender wrists as well. Of course, women and, guys could actually wear this if you've got thicker wrists. For me, I like a watch just to be like perfectly proportioned where it fits and the dial is a decent diameter. So even though it's a really comfortable watch and fits well on my wrist, it just looks too small. I mean, it's just really, really strange. I never thought I'd have to say that about a watch. But again, it's a dress watch. Dress watches are usually on the smaller side. And that seems to be a growing trend as well. Watches are shrinking more to their like vintage sizes. Because there was a bit of a trend where watches were getting massive and really oversized. But it seems now that watches are coming back down in size and getting a little bit smaller. So yeah, they're definitely a good thing for us guys and girls with slimmer wrists. And this one is just a prime example of that. Really, really short lug to lug, really small diameter. And you know what? It's a very, very comfortable watch. This Millennium strap is really nice. It conforms well to my wrist. It's got that universal sizing, so you can move it up and down the strap at will. You do need a little tool though to actually get in. I'll just show you now actually, if I can get my finger there. So if you pop that off, you can just see right there. You need a little sort of flathead screwdriver, a really tiny one, and you just pop that latch up and then you can freely move the clasp up and down the bracelet, and then it just fastens shut, if I can do it, and then, like that, like so. So anyway, that's what it looks like on wrist. There it is, profile-wise. I've noticed this with a Spitfire as well. It does seem to ride that way a little bit towards the top of my wrist. I'm not really sure why these watches do that, but it just seems to. Comfort though, very, very impressive. I love, the slight curvature to the lugs. It brings it down really nicely. So yeah, very, very comfortable watch to wear, and the leather strap is very, very nice as well. It does take a lot of breaking in though, I did notice, like I said in my Spitfire review, you're going to be needing to wear it for, you know, a good month or so to really break in that leather and get it nice and soft and supple. So what I'm going to do now is, you know, talk a little bit about Lume, because it doesn't have much, and then we'll go over prices and whether I think these watches are worth it. So right guys, these watches do have a little bit of Lume. So you can just see on the hands we've got some little dots, and that is pretty much all the Lume you get. Now, to be honest, I would have rather there wasn't any Lume on at all, because it's not very good. I mean, there's no Lume on the dial, so it's really quite hard to get an accurate tell on the time. And I mean, I don't think dress watches really need Lume, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I mean, could it work? Yeah, but I just think Lume on dress watches just sort of spoils the elegance of them, in my opinion. And this one, I mean, it's really tastefully done and there's not much of it, but I just don't think it's a very useful feature to have. I would have rather have seen, you know, the seconds and, you know, the minute and hour hand like hollowed out instead of having it Lume filled. I think that would have looked really, really nice. But again, you know, you can see by the Lume video now of all three of them, it's just not very, very good Lume. So again, I'm not really going to knock any points for it because it's got Lume and it's a dress watch, which, you know, doesn't have notoriously good Lume anyway. But, you know, it's one of those features that I wouldn't miss if it wasn't there, to be honest. So now let's wrap this review up and talk about prices. So this small seconds one will set you back between $256 to $280 depending on the strap. So it's $256 on the leather and $280 on the Milanese. The golden stars will set you back between $268 to $292 depending on the strap. So it's more expensive on the Milanese. And then finally we get on to the most expensive of the trio, which is the calendar. This will set you back between $280 and $304. So to wrap up, let's just move the camera so I don't have to keep picking them up. So to wrap up, do I think these three watches are worth it? And do you know what? I think they are. I mean, again, you know, dress watches aren't really my thing, but I do think I could honestly wear these watches. I'd wear any one of them, to be honest, on the right strap. Admittedly, rose gold is probably my least favourite. I'm not a huge fan of rose gold finishes, especially when it's fully done like this. I don't mind a little bit of rose gold, but when it's full like this, it's just a little bit too much for me. Out of these two, I think I'd probably go for the golden stars, because I love how they've done that moon phase with the applied, you know, stars and sun. Very, very beautifully done. So yeah, all these watches worth it. Yeah, they were a little bit pricey, but I think, you know, you're getting a dress watch from a micro brand that's been in the game for a long time. The build quality is really good. They've got good specifications. They're really comfortable. Very, very well made. Got really reliable movements in them. So yeah, I definitely think, yeah, they might be on the pricey side. Makes them a bit more of a considered purchase. But I can say that they are worth it, in my opinion. You're getting some, you know, really nice complications, and complications, you know, to suit different scenarios as well. So even though the watches are very, very similar, they're also unique too, which is, you know, something you don't see all that often from a line of the same watches. Usually the watches, you know, they might have different straps, maybe a different dial colour, but you don't usually get different complications for each model. So props to Gavox for doing that. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this review. Again, you know, these will be linked in the description, and I am a fan of these. Never thought I'd say that about a dress watch, but I do really like these ones. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.